Thank you everyone for coming. It is always difficult to go at lunch because people are there's two things that can happen. Either A couple of people nod off, and by the way, I watch nodders, and I'll give you an award if you can guess who nodded off the most and how many times. No, I'm just joking. But my name is Wesley Pullen. I'm the Chief DevOps Strategist for Electric Cloud. You came to the right place at the right time, and just because there's a small crowd doesn't mean I'm gonna give you a small effort. I'm going to give you the best effort, so hopefully you'll enjoy it. We've got 30 minutes. We'll cover as much material as I can drum up in the best possible way. I speak fast, but I will slow down because I really want you to grab this. What we're going to talk about is more than just DevOps going from grassroots to mainstream. It's that what is now, or what started as a movement or philosophy, is now mandatory. It is the differentiating factor, but we believe that there's probably some key things you can gain from this conference when you leave here so that you can take advantage of DevOps. And by next year, when you return, my hope and my prayer is that you'll be significantly further advanced. So let's hit it. What I'd like to do is start off by, how many people know what this screen is representing? DevOps Days. Does anybody know when it took place? Started 2009, Ghent, Belgium. You see a couple of people in there. Look at the size of the room there versus what you saw earlier today. It all started, everybody, even though the beginnings can be small, the latter end can be significantly great. So it started small, but it's now grown big. But when it started, and the graphic is not all that great, I'm so sorry, but in the 2013 State of the DevOps report, which was created in December 2012, the team there found out that DevOps, if you look at that, just in January 2011, just started to get some hits. Actual jobs start posting on Indeed, indicating that there are some DevOps jobs, people looking for DevOps skills. It's the very, very beginning. DevOps started getting mentioned, and mentions started to grow in LinkedIn by over 50%. This is back in December 2012. The 2013 State of the DevOps report was, I believe, published in 2013, but the data was collected in December 2012. So very, very small beginnings, right? This is just taking off when Patrick Dubois, Chris Biotart, and quite a few others got together and said, hey, look, we need to make something happen where Dev and Ops can start working and collaborating together. So this is the very beginnings, and the roots of that started to grow. I also took the liberty to take a snapshot back in December 2012. What was common? What was the barrier to adopting DevOps back then? Back then, there was lack of manager or team buy-in, and the value of DevOps wasn't fully understood at a group level. Everyone didn't understand what it was. It was just kind of a methodology, a high-level idea. And what they wrote in the report that I found quite interesting is there are some solutions to getting DevOps adoption. Number one, start a conversation with a teammate. Currently doing that today. Invite someone from another team to lunch, right? Start, spreading the word. And then finally, I love this. Ask about their laptop stickers that's on the back of their laptops. So in techie world, we all put, stickers on the back of the laptops, and they say, you need to ask about that. But I mean, this is the very beginning. We're going back 5 years before we had the big conferences, before we started to see things take off. People were just trying to understand, why is this important? Why should I be doing this? And now we look today and we see what? This is where we're at today. You look at the State of the DevOps report from 2017, and there was some very, very fascinating information. How many people have browsed it, looked at it just briefly, maybe 5-10 minutes, skimmed it? Okay, maybe a little bit, half the crowd. The interesting thing I found about that is, let's compare to what we saw in the 2013 State of the DevOps report. What was interesting is that we saw that DevOps as a profession and a discipline was growing in demand significantly. So you see a chart there that's Scalar. This is on the Scalar blog. I saw it on LinkedIn. I was like, man, we should probably use that. You see it grow from April of 2012 up to 2016, just the end of last year, almost around this time. Look at the significant growth in just people searching and looking up DevOps, trying to get a better understanding. Did you know that there was over 100 global conferences dedicated to DevOps at the end of 2017? This being one of those conferences. Now, who would have thought that in Belgium in 2009, that there would be 100 global conferences dedicated to this thing called DevOps? You talk about mass growth. That is rather phenomenal. That's a lot of people investing their time. Your time is valuable. When you walk away from some of your jobs, that means there's certain things that have to go on pause. Not everybody's team can move forward. Some can, some can't. But that's a significant investment for people to dedicate this type of time. So we want to start talking about what's happening. What are some of the results from just people looking at these searches and starting to drill down into this DevOps? Here's some characteristics from the report. Again, you guys can read it in the PowerPoint that you'll be getting. They're all hyperlinked. I always try to make it easy that I don't like referencing things that you can't go look up. That's not fair. As a presenter, as a speaker, I like you to be able to click on it and say, okay, here's what he was talking about. So from the State of the DevOps report, 2017, we learned some transformational leadership characteristics, number one being vision. That now, from the time we started in 2011, when the first one came out at early 2012, end of 2011, we've now figured out that everyone has to be bought into the vision, that we have to have inspirational communication. It's now a team effect. We have a major focus on intellectual stimulation in support of leadership, and people get personally recognized. It's not enough. And I think the Key Bank, when they showed their talk earlier this morning, for the CEO to mention, for Kramer, Mad Money with Kramer, for even the concept of DevOps to be mentioned is rather significant. It was just that as significant for me when we saw movies start to mention in Alex Cross, the movie Alex Cross mentioned that they splunked a log in a movie. I mean, it was just amazing that now technologies we use, we leverage, they're in movies as well as they're in blogs, and then now we're seeing them on CNBC and posts with CEOs. So we're making you guys really are making a difference in the world because the technology is being talked about as being a differentiator. So automation in this report was a huge boon. It was very, very critical to organizations, and DevOps applies to all organizations. I think years ago, the theory was DevOps would only apply to the techies, the unicorns, the Netflixes, the Googles, the LinkedIn's, all the real top techie companies in the Bay Area. We didn't know back then, and I wasn't aware that this would also be applied to Department of Defense, public, private sector, healthcare, automotive. It's not just the technical companies that are looking at technologies and DevOps being transformational. It's just about everyone. And the report starts to grab information from almost every sector of society. So really nice there. And then the final thing that I wanted to take from the State of the DevOps report, again, this is hyperlink, you'll get the deck, is that you start to notice the lead time for change and the mean time to recover. So it's great to build great software. It's great to accelerate and get that automated. But where the rubber meets the road is when things go wrong, when things happen that we did not expect. How fast can we get it back and recover and stay right on pace? And so that mean time to recover is critical for you no matter what role you play. We used to ask the question. Back in the old days, I was at Rational, I was teaching OO classes. We used to always say, whose responsibility is it in the company for quality? And in the beginning, everybody would say, well, quality assurance. No, everyone in that company, from janitor to CEO, is responsible for quality, because when they buy your company's product, whether you're Cap One or Target or anyone, they buy you, they buy the entire company. So it's everyone. They don't say, man, this doesn't work, you have a bad QA department. No, your company is bad if you can't do X, Y, and Z. So everyone's responsible for quality. Everyone is responsible for making sure that the product that's produced and it's resolved as soon as possible. The smart ones as well as the ones that are not so involved. That's why you see HR attending now some of the DevOps conferences. I thought that was very notable. 2 people from HR. Okay, so there's something else that we learned from the State of the DevOps report, and this is going to spearhead me into the other talk. Again, this is what I call the hors d'oeuvre or the dessert menu of what I'm talking about. We only got 20 more minutes, so it's not like we can go very deep, but I can give you a couple of leading indicators of what I'm going to discuss and give you some food for thought. But what I liked is the graph on the in the bottom left there, to your left. And it talks about, you see the black line and the orange line, the black line representing the low IT performers, people who have not yet fully adopted all aspects of DevOps, versus the ones on the orange who have really, they're high performing IT organizations. And you start to see a deviation on the mean time to recover. So that's a low performer doesn't mean that they're not trying DevOps, is that they have not solidified it throughout the culture in the company that this is our key differentiator. And what occurs is that there's a deviation occurring between how fast they can solve a problem. So at the end of the day, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's your product being able to be resolved quickly. And if you're not doing that, then skip being a low IT performer, you're giving a bad representation for all your hard work. And so that's something that needs to be looked at. We need to get to a point where we solve that. How do we solve that? How do we do that? One thing that I like from a statement, and I got this from a very good friend, is that, if we're not in a position to adapt, it makes it hard for people to see the quality in our hard-earned work. So our ability to adapt is very key, because you can be smart, you can be intelligent, but the adaptability of the technology. We've noticed that technology is shifting all the time. I remember when we used to have talks about virtualization. We were going to be 80% virtualized and then 100% virtualized. Everybody went after these virtualization. Now we're doing the same thing with containers. And then there'll be something else 5, 6, 7 years down the road. So technology has to constantly adapt to what you need, not to what a vendor or anyone else. It's how does technology adapt to the needs of your business. And that's a very important thing. So this is something that I took from an IDC report, that the cost of downtime, now this is not any one particular, any companies in the room, it's just representing that when we don't fix the problem and adapt, this is the other end of that spectrum from the low IT performing organizations that you saw me put up on the chart. And again, these are referenceable artifacts. Number one in the IDC report, where they talked about Fortune 1000 best practices and metrics, is that the infrastructure failure average cost when you're not a high-performing IT organization can be very significant. The Fortune 1000 downtime, so when a Fortune 1000 company is down or something goes wrong because of an update, because of a failed miscommunication, something goes wrong, $1.25 to $2.5 billion a year in costs. That's rather significant, I think. And then finally, critical application failure. This is just a report that IDC put out, I believe it was in 2014, 2015. And they said, when critical applications fail, we do all this work as a team. We've gone through all the rigor and all the disciplines that we've learned from continuous delivery, from Agile, from DevOps, and we don't get it right. The potential impact can be devastating. 0.5 to $1 million an hour in cost to the business. So this is why I'm saying that it's no longer just an idea or a methodology. It's now mainstream, or what I call mandatory. It's mandatory for us to fix this. It's mandatory for us, hopefully, that we all become high-performing organizations. There's nothing stopping a low-performing to a high-performing company. There's nothing stopping them from being able to move towards high-performing capability sets. Okay, so how do we do this? Time to adapt. Couple of things I'd like to share with you. One of the hottest sectors, this was coming from the Gartner report, where they started to look at the companies that adopt DevOps. What are some of the key things that you need to enable yourself and position yourself to be successful? One of those things was release automation. Gartner coined the term application release automation. There's other terms for it, synonymous with continuous delivery, continuous deployment, and a few others. But when Gartner kind of put that stamp out there, Forrester has a very similar construct called the CDRA, or the Continuous Delivery Release Automation Wave. The objective was to say, here are the key tenets that you will need. Modeling out your processes, modeling out applications, modeling out your environment so that we understand what's going on in the environment. Taking the ability to have releases that are like pipelines throughout the entire organization. So you're going to see me talk about kind of what I call the 5 key things for what we're saying is adaptive release automation in 2018. These are what I'm going to say are the 5 key aspects I want to leave you with in my 15 minutes that I will cover that will help you adapt and get prepared for how you can be ready for this by next year. So whether you're a high IT performing organization, medium or low, we want it so that a year from now, if you so choose to come back and we're in this all same room, you can say, hey, Wes, we did it, we made the adjustment and you made it. You're all high IT performing organization. So 5 key things. Number 1, the ability to release on business demand. Teamwork makes the release work. Teamwork makes the release work. And I'm not talking team in that we talk to each other and we go to lunch. I'm talking about as a team, we have the ability to accelerate release cycles towards any cadence and scale that the business demands. The business demands it and we can work efficiently to get it done. Whether you follow CSG's model or Netflix model or some other model, I'm not talking about the model. I'm saying the teamwork is going to make your release work. And we need software capabilities and software technology that allows for us to work as a team. I shouldn't create something over on the left-hand side that the right-hand side can't consume, can't take advantage of, can't give me data and analytics on. So the release has to be something that can be accelerated, match the demands of the business. You should be able to orchestrate the entire software development lifecycle. Your release pipeline should be something that's visible. If someone is a process engineer comes in and says, look, I want to see the rigor of the cadence you go through, think of it as a factory. If I have steel coming in one end and the car coming out the other, I should be able to stop at any point in time and say, okay, where am I at in this process? What goes on? What's documented? What are the risks? I should be able to evaluate that just like I do with hardware. I should be able to do that with software. Coordinate releases across the team. So release on business demand. The second thing that we need to be able to do, it's time to focus back in on the data. We're collecting a lot of data. You cannot improve what you can't measure. And that's where you should be starting. Despite the fact that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of DevOps tools in your DevOps tool chest. If I had a tool chest to represent DevOps right now, I probably couldn't even hold it up. There are thousands of tools, and everybody's going to do it a different way. All I'm saying is get data. Get the data from them, build a dashboard that people can live off of, and measure where you're at before you start using the automation. That's like going into a doctor and saying, look, here's my problem, fix this. And he's like, wait. I have to take a culture, I have to do a physical, I have to examine where you're at first before I give you the right course of action on how to fix it. Measure before you can improve. You got to measure first. And what we mean by measure is you should be able to build out for your organization and your teams a value stream where I can take a snapshot and say, before you go implementing the newest automation tool, before I go run, like the guys said, the CEO said from Red, before I go run and go after Kubernetes or OpenShift, where am I at today? What's the state of where I'm at today? What does the data say? Is that going to give me the greatest value if I implement that fix versus some other things? There should be a way for me to look at it in an advanced predictive way. You're collecting a lot of data. You've got a lot of logs. You've got a lot of tools. There should be a way for me to be able to improve that. Take a snapshot, look at a dashboard that brings in all the team's work and say, here's where we're at day one. Here's where we want to get to. Right? How many people remember the AAA triptychs before we had nav systems and we used to plan it all out and, you would map it out, highlight it in yellow, they would send it back to you and need the triptych. I need the triptych. Before we begin, before we say, here's what we're going to work on, let's get the triptych. Let's understand where you're at. Okay? Visibility across everything, specifically your release pipelines. So need unprecedented insight. Pipeline as a service, your pipeline is key. The pipeline is no different than the factory procedures. I gave you that example of raw metal comes in a car, beautiful car, maybe a Tesla comes out. How did I get there? What are the stop gaps along the way? That pipeline should be visible and understood by everyone on the team, not just the technical people. Everyone should be able to say, okay, wait, did you validate and verify this? Yes, you're using Docker. Did you scan your libraries? Do we have something that's in there that shouldn't be in there? I mean, you should be able to ask the question and get answers. The ones that you don't ask are the ones that ends up hurting us in the end. So you got to be able to see that. It has to be shared across the team. Standards as well as customized processes should be something that everybody has access to. So we call it pipeline as a service, or your ability to see the pipeline so that you can question, okay, is this the right pipeline? Because once this is our pipeline that's set, what comes in, something's going to come out. And we want to make sure that something matches our SLAs. It matches what we need to do as a company to get out quality software. And the technical and business visibility, you should be able to see that communication. You should make sure that you're eliminating any cadence mismatch from one team to the next, because the way we envision it, each team is going to be building their own pipelines. They're going to run off and do their own thing. You're going to have some cloud operations, some people going to the left, maybe someone else who works in mainframe. There should be a part of it. By the way, mainframe should be a part of this too. For some reason, people get this thing that the mainframe should be separate. We do our thing over here, and you guys do your thing over here. This is all a part of a system that needs to work, that provides value to some end user. So it all should be together. Whether it's mainframe, whether it's Java, JEE, .NET, PowerShell-based, script-based, Power Builder-based, all the way up to Docker and Kubernetes and the more modern-day technology of microservices, I still should be able to ask you questions about your pipeline, see what's going on, what goes in and what comes out. And that data should bubble up to some executive or somebody that says, here's where we're at. We plan to be here. We're here. Here's how we're going to close the gap. Okay? So the pipeline is key. All right. Still doing good. We got a few more minutes. Adapt at the speed of innovation. There used to be a saying that people say, well, you're a mile wide or an inch deep or an inch wide and a mile deep. What I'm challenging you to say, you should be a mile wide and several miles deep. You got to go deep. If you're going to adapt at the speed of innovation, we're building new utilities all the time. Everyone is. We don't know. I think of the old days when I was at IBM with ClearCase, and then Subversion came along and said, everybody say goodbye to ClearCase, and now Git comes along and say goodbye Subversion, and it'll keep going. Who knows what the tool's going to be 5 years from now? Who knows what's going to be the next biggest thing after Docker 7 years from now? There's always going to be something. There's going to always be more tools. We won't get to a state where say we're done. No more tools. You only use what you got up to this date. It's always going to be something new, and it's going to keep expanding. So in order to do that, you've got to adapt at the speed of innovation. You have to be deep. You got to be wide, but you got to be deep. And in order to do that, you have to give it so that there should be some best practices so that people don't have to start from scratch. I mean, there has to be experiences we all have collectively that we can put into best practice templates so that everyone can take advantage of those templates. So that's my first thing. Out of the box best practice templates to deliver fast time to value. We've got to eliminate the learning curve. We can't and don't have the time to take months and months to do something that we should be doing in hours or a couple weeks. We've got to get better, because things are changing all the time. So we have to be able to rapidly adapt to pipelines so that the new business demands and the technology changes don't stop the show. Okay, so a mile wide, but several miles deep if necessary. And then finally, all that to reach this, finally, eliminate risk anxiety. I put this down because I saw this in one of the reports. I will not mention it. Which report I got this from. I got to hide this one, but they said too many people back then, it was one of the State of the DevOps report, they do finger pointing. We can't do the finger pointing. The finger pointing doesn't help us. Remember I said teamwork makes the release work, teamwork makes the dream work, whatever analogy you want to use. Eliminating the finger pointing, eliminating the gaps where a team works in the silo and says, look, Wes, my pipeline's perfect. We got everything working perfectly. We don't want to touch it. The problem is that you are part of a larger scale. You're a part of a larger, if the boat goes down, everyone in the boat goes down. You can't argue if you're on a rowing team, well, yeah, look, my oars are great. I did great on my side, but you lost. If one person, you lose the race, everyone loses, even if you have the great team. That's like a guy saying, hey, look, I did great. I scored 30 points in the game. Yeah, but you got blown up by 50. It doesn't matter if you score 30 points. The team loses. And what made great teams is the guy who never, or the young lady who never focuses on what they did. It's their contribution to the team winning. It's not so much about you as an individual. Nobody wants to see one guy score 50 points, the team score 60, and you lose by 30. You didn't win. So you win when the team wins. You lose when the team loses. But you stay together. And so to do that, we've got to assure fidelity of environments. We got to make sure that the information we're grabbing and the information we're collecting is used across everything we're doing in the team. What that means is reduce release cycles. If we're going to reduce release cycles to eliminate this risk and take down this anxiety, we got to do it in such a way that everybody's a part of that. In other words, we make calendars and we reserve resources like cars and conference rooms, but for some reason we believe that everybody works in the environment and we won't collide and collude with each other. We got to start applying the same thing we do in the real world to how we work with our systems and the software we're working on every day. So complete availability, complete audit trail, complete visibility across what we're doing. If we're doing the right things, then being visible and making that available so that I treat myself, whether I'm in audit capable waters or not, I should treat it so that every day it's like I'm having an audit. If you got audited tomorrow morning, would everything be ready to go? Could we see everything? Would we know and have a ready-made log to click a button and say, bam, or do we have to get 50 developers across 50 different teams and say, look, you need to collect all this data. We're having a mock audit. If I could add one thing into DevOps, what I have not heard, Gene Kim and James DeLucia did the greatest thing. They wrote this DevOps toolkit for auditors. Highly suggest looking at that. Treat it as if you're getting audited daily. And I think it will change the game of what you expose, whether you're getting audited or not. Okay? All right. So got to put in the plug. It's the last 4 minutes. Right on time here. Electric Cloud is a company. We're not new to this game. Just for those who have not heard of us, I do appreciate everybody coming. Is that we help the world deliver better software faster. We call it DevOps release automation. I've extended that with the team, and we as a company now believe it's adaptive. Adaptive release automation is the key, and I think all technology should adapt to the needs of the business. So it's got to be adaptive. I think one thing that I have learned in my experience, I've been there just going on 4 years, is that in the beginning, I used to think I would argue with the late Steve Jobs' statement in the early years where I thought focus was all about saying yes to the one thing. I have found out since then that there are so many technologies, there's so much innovation now, that now focus is our ability as a company to say no to the 1,000 different areas we get pulled down to stay maniacally focused on what we can do best for our customers and the prospects. So I do agree that innovation is saying no to 1,000 things, not so much saying yes to one. But you got to say no to these other areas in order so that you can focus on the thing that most matters. So that's something to keep in heart about who Electric Cloud is. We take pride in being able to compete. Competition is always good, but there's nothing like being at the top of your scale. There's always going to be great competitors. Competition works for everyone in this room. I don't care if it's Chef and Puppet. I don't care if it's App Dynamics, New Relic, CoralSense, Dynatrace. Competition is always going to be there. But the customer benefits when you can see a track record of somebody leading the stage and trying to stay at the top year after year. It's not easy. Look at any football franchise, baseball franchise, hockey franchise. It is hard always making it to the championship game and winning. But it is a pleasure to do so because you learn something about yourself and you learn something about your team. So it's great that we've had an opportunity and the privilege to be in the leaders bracket several years and to try and lead this effort of what we're talking about and get ready for the 2018 stage, which is adaptive release automation. So I will close by sharing some information here. We've got other talks where Electric Cloud is either sponsoring or speaking or working with one of our customers. I would highly suggest if you've got a few minutes, just to step in for 5-10 minutes. If you can stay the whole time, that would be great. If you can't, we fully understand. But these other talks will kind of drill down on some of the other things I've indicated. We also have a booth up in the exhibit hall. I think it would be great to kind of see what I'm talking about in action, to put some of the details behind it. So if you're interested in analytics and dashboards and those types of things, you want to go up to that booth and get a demonstration and get a better understanding of how we might be able to help you, even if we're not getting involved in the release automation portion. Maybe you use us to take a snapshot, that measure, so that you can know what to improve. Thank you so much for your time. I think I'm out of time. I got 1 minute and 30 seconds to spare. Could we get one question? Is that possible? In a minute? We got 1 minute and 30 seconds. One question? Going once, going twice? Yes. So I did spend about almost 7 years at plus years at BMC. So there's lots of ways. Within the system of what you call electric flow, since you went to the training, we have integrations, we have APIs we can tie in so that the approvals, and what the question she's really asking is that when we have approvals in another system, how do we make sure that those approvals stay in the pipeline? Because we want to track how long it takes. If you take 3 weeks to approve something, that goes into the audit report I provide to the gentleman. Yeah, it took us 4 months and 2 months was just waiting on approvals. So yes, that can be tied in. We integrate with any of those technologies. They have a REST API, they have a command line interface, or some way that they can give us a status so that our pipeline is waiting until that is invoked. Very, very critical. We can integrate with BMC technology and a host of others. Okay? Wow. Perfect. Thanks. Time is up. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.